Hello, welcome to another episode of I'm convinced no one has life figured out. We're all just winging it. Some people are better at winging it than others. Some people are better at performing like they have life figured out, but in reality they don't, because none of us do. And this is me attempting to figure out life as best as I can by documenting the process. Because at the end of the day, sharing is caring, right? And if I can learn something and it takes me a year to learn it, and someone else can watch a video of mine and learn that in less time, I'm a happy camper. Something that has been on my mind for years, but that I don't feel like enough people are talking about, or maybe I'm just not around people who talk about this a lot or enough, is the definition of reality. I have looked up multiple definitions of reality from different sources. None of them make any sense to me. If you have a definition that you know and understand and think makes sense, please share it in the comments below, because I'm yet to find one that makes sense to me. Merriam-Webster, okay, a dictionary that's been around since 1828, all right. Their definition is the quality or state of being real. What does that mean? What are you telling me? You're not giving me anything, okay? Let's keep going. A real event, a real entity, a real state of affairs. The totality of real things and events. What? Let me try a different dictionary. Okay, dictionary.com. The state or quality of being real. Resemblance to what is real. A real thing or fact. Real things, real facts, or real events taken as a whole. Okay, they also give us a philosophical definition. Something that exists independently of ideas concerning it. Something that exists independently of all other things and from which all other things derive. I'm not going to keep going because I want to believe that you're getting the basic gist of what I'm saying. The definition of reality, to me, is not a sufficient definition. And so, of course, I started to think, like, okay, since the definition of reality is unacceptable to me, how would I define reality? And I personally would define reality as something, don't know what that thing is yet, we'll get there eventually, hopefully, maybe, that is defined by one's perspective. So reality is a state of being that is defined by someone's perspective. Okay, yes, reality is a state of being that is defined by one's perspective. However, we also know that everyone has different perspectives, right? So that means that no one's reality is essentially the same because everyone has different perspectives. The only perspective I live is my own. I literally can only live my own perspective. I can maybe understand or empathize or try to walk in someone else's shoes, right? But I wake up as myself within my own consciousness, within this body, having this experience through these eyes and using all the senses that I have access to define my reality through a perspective that is only mine. Therefore, there is no one definition of reality. So essentially, reality is both relative and subjective, which means no one has the right to tell someone how things should or shouldn't be, because the reality of the situation is that the other person's perspective or other people's perspective is inherently different than your own, and therefore they are living in a different reality. So rather than define what people's realities should be based on what you believe reality is, based on your perspective, we should all just be open to everyone's realities and everyone's perspectives, understanding that reality is defined by perspective. Okay, so I feel like I might be jumbling my words a bit, but I'm hoping that the point is sticking. I have a list of thoughts that I'm just like, I want to talk about this. I want to do research on this. I want to have conversations about this. I want to have dialogue on this. But where do I even begin? One thing that I think about often when it comes to reality is what our senses are capable of picking up and how that defines our reality. So for example, I think of the electromagnetic spectrum, which is the spectrum of light, and it shows us visible light, like the visible light that we as humans are able to see. It's such a small amount of the entire spectrum. It just further emphasizes that there are degrees of light that we aren't able to see but exist. It's the same with sound. Like, we might not be able to hear certain animals communicate, but they are communicating. It's the same with what is this thing? Dolphins, ultrasound. I'm thinking of dolphins and ultrasound. Apparently, dolphins have the capability of knowing when a human, I believe, from what I understand, a human is pregnant because they communicate through ultrasound. I also know that octopuses are able to know based on touch if they are touching a female or a male based on how much estrogen they can taste in the skin. There are so many ways that our senses define our reality, and our senses as humans are so limited that it just further emphasizes that our understanding of reality is also therefore limited. And if our understanding of reality is limited and our senses are limited, then our understanding of ourselves to an extent is inherently also limited. And so I, in this journey of trying to figure out who I am, if you want more details on that journey and why I even started in the first place, it's because of my therapist, and I have a video on that. I should put it somewhere here. But anyway, in this journey of me trying to figure out who I am, I'm also trying to, whilst acknowledge that, like, I mean, I'm a human, you know what I mean? Like, I can't communicate through ultrasound. I've got the senses I've got, like, that's what it is. But in trying to figure out who I am, I also want to be open to the fact that reality can be and is broader, wider, and more expansive than I understand. And therefore, I want to be able to have more grace when it comes to understanding other people, and more grace when it comes to understanding myself. Because at the end of the day, there are some things about myself that I might not understand, but existence in of itself is almost like limitless. Of course, I'm not going to understand everything about myself. The reality is, I probably won't, but I want to be intentional in trying to figure out as much of myself in this life as I can. But I don't know if it's smart to do that based on what I consider to be real, or if I should just delve into all the other spectrums of existence and reality that I don't have access to, but that science and life and experience tells us is real, and use that as a means to further try and understand myself and understand life. And I recognize that right now it might seem like I'm babbling, which I probably am, but I'm just genuinely interested to understand what reality is, because there's been no definition that makes sense to me, and this is just one of those thoughts that keeps me up at night. And so I'm exploring it here with you. And I would love to have a conversation about this, actually. I know that different cultures and religions and traditions play a large part in how people define reality. And there are so many different religions and cultures and traditions in the world that exist. And a lot of them overlap in many ways. And I want to understand through the various means of existence and understandings in the world, the most fundamental understanding of reality and life. And like, I think about, hold on, let's dive a bit in here. I think about okay, what's going on in space, okay? We are on a planet. This planet is floating, and Earth is part of a solar system, the Milky Way, and that solar system is part of a galaxy, and that galaxy is part of a universe, okay? But there are other planets in the solar system, there are other solar systems in our galaxy, and there are other galaxies in our universe. I don't even know if we know for sure how many of each thing there is, but the fact that you can keep zooming out, like if you think of a cell and you keep zooming out, and you get to your body, right? Oh, no. You think of an atom and you keep zooming out, and you get to your body. I feel like it's the same thing when it comes to planets and the universe. Like, you just keep zooming out. But how far can you zoom out? We only have access to so much information based on the information that we're able to find and the information that we have access to, right? And so then I'm here amongst this grand, this huge, grand, expansive, what seems like limitless existence of whatever is going on. And I'm here worrying and caring and defining myself by what other people think. It just seems wild. Like, all of a sudden, other people's opinions don't matter. All of a sudden, I have an urge and a want to be so true to myself and live a life that feels so good to me. Of course, with centering joy and respect and peace and, all of these fundamental things that I assume that, we're all on the same page when it comes to what we center in terms of goodness. But anyway, I'm digressing. To allow someone else's opinion of me to dictate how I navigate the world and how I navigate life and how I see myself is such an insult to me, Tochi, right? As it is, like, if you allow anyone else's opinion to define how you move, that's an insult to you. And I say that because I am the only version of me that has ever existed and that will ever exist, I believe. And the reality of that is, because my perspective and my reality belongs to me, and I'm the only version of me that exists, how dare I allow someone else's reality and someone else's perspective to define mine that is so uniquely mine? It's mine. The one thing thing I have is my perspective, and how I choose to move through the world or how I choose to expand it or limit it, that's up to me. But it's mine. And more so, the definition I have of myself and how I see myself is so important outside of what other people think of me, because it also defines my reality. If perspective is defining reality, the perspective I have of myself will also define my reality. And if there's anything I believe, is that we are all deserving of abundance and greatness and joy and all of these things. But our access to those things is based on our reality, and our reality is based on our perspective, and we cannot give anyone the power to shift our perspective, because that literally shifts our reality. And so now it makes sense that one of the things that my therapist made me do in, this journey of me trying to figure out who I am, it makes sense that I am to put myself in positions that are uncomfortable, in that there would be situations where I judge someone else negatively, because when I judge someone negatively, I am like projecting my opinion on them. And in trying to figure out who I am, putting myself in an uncomfortable position is essentially me putting myself in a position where I recognize that other people may be judging me negatively or maybe projecting their perspective onto me, but I have to make the decision, I have to make the choice to not allow their perspectives to define my reality, or their opinions to define my reality. And that's so important to me at this stage of my life. It's important for me to not allow anyone else's opinions or perspectives or thoughts or beliefs or any of that to define me. I want to develop those things for myself, and I know it's not going to happen overnight, but I want to be able to develop those things for myself so that I am so rooted in who I am that nothing can sway me, I just think that's so important for us to be able to recognize ourselves through our own perspectives and our own understandings of ourselves, and not how we've been conditioned to see ourselves, not how society says we should see ourselves, not how other people say we should see ourselves, not how we believe we should see ourselves, but how we want to see ourselves, and seeing ourselves in a way that's healthy and safe and intentional and positive. I didn't really have a plan for this video. I just knew that I wanted to talk about reality and how I don't understand the definition. And somehow we've gotten to this space where I've made a connection with how our understanding of reality also dictates and influences how we see ourselves. And I'm happy to have gotten here, because I'm just showing myself yet again that I need to not care what people think. I just need to not care what people think. And that's with everything, like how I look, how I sound, my opinions. I also want to be able to give myself grace to change my mind, because you are allowed to change your mind. I also want to give myself grace for who I was, who I am, and the space in between that. I think of like the opinions and thoughts and beliefs I had like 10 years ago, and wow, like that's such a different version of me. And I want to give credit to that growth, because even if it wasn't intentional, I'm here today where I am, and I'm proud of how far I've come, and the fact that I can sit here and record a video and not feel like I need to be perfect and not have my makeup done, and I didn't even change into any like special outfit. I didn't try to like fix my back. Oh my god, do you see this? I'm like trying to make myself seem more like presentable. I didn't even consciously do that. That's wild. So you see, that's also something, I guess, like I want to be presentable, but I don't want to go out of my way to like look good for the camera when I'm just showing up as myself. Like I'm just showing up as my authentic self, and I'm trying to figure this life thing out, and I'm choosing to document it. So this is just part of that process. Anyway, I've said a lot today, and this life is so complex. I'm curious to know still what your definition of reality is, because even though we've made it to the end of this video, there's still no definition that really resonates with me. So if you have one, please share it. Thank you for joining me today, as always, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.